Welcome to the Ave Podcast with Cal C on South Shore Ave Radio.
Welcome to the Ave Podcast. Now, before we get into our Super Bowl predictions, Raj, and I know we didn't get a chance to really go over our award stuff because, well, I wanted to do it last week, but then, Brian Flores and his lawsuit came into our lives. So that served more of a precedence. But based on the fact that, we saw who won the awards for the most part, were there any disputes of the award winners? And just before, I'll list them out again, just so so you get a grasp of it. I don't know if you have it right in front of you, but
sure.
Coach of the year was Titans coach Mike Vrabel. Comeback player of the year was Bengals Joe Burrow. Defensive rookie of the year was Cowboys linebacker Micah Parsons. Offensive rookie of the year, I think we all know who that is, Chase. Defensive player of the year is TJ Watt. The offensive player of the year is Cooper Kupp, and the MVP is Aaron Rodgers. Are there any disputes with any of those selections?
The only one that I can honestly dispute is the MVP award with Aaron Rodgers.
That's because you don't like him.
It's not that I don't like him. It's just I don't see it. I don't see it, man. If you were to tell me, if I was to tell you that there's two quarterbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two stud quarterbacks. One of them had won 13 games, had 5,300 yards and 43 touchdowns, and the other one had 21 touchdowns and 4,200 yards and won 13 games. But that person had a better efficiency. They were more efficient with the ball. Who would you think had the better season? That's what I would say. Exactly the same record, except one of the quarterbacks did finish with the overall top record in the NFC. But other than that, the other person had more yards, more touchdowns. But they also had more interceptions. 14 interceptions to 4 interceptions, I believe. Right?
Yeah, because how much TDs did Aaron throw?
I believe it was 21.
No, it was more than that. No, it was more than that.
I could swear I read that.
No, there's no way he had 21 touchdowns. There's no way.
Hold on one sec. Could be completely wrong. Give me 1 sec. I know he had 4 interceptions.
He had 37. He had 37 TDs.
Oh, sorry, 37. Sorry, my bad. 37 touchdowns. 37 touchdowns, and I still think it was 4 interceptions, I believe.
Yes.
Which is really good. Don't get me wrong, which is really good. But
and the thing is, when you look at it, I think at least 2 of those picks was in the first game.
That I'm not sure. I know he had a horrible game against New Orleans, and that's where he threw 2 of his interceptions. I know that much.
Well, that's the game I'm talking about. That was the first game of the year.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't even remember that.
Yeah, that was the first game of the year. So when I look at it from that perspective, I'm like, so the rest of the year, I don't know how much TDs he had in that game, if he had any, but I don't think he did. But if he didn't, then he went 37-2 the rest of the way. It's kind of tough. I mean, it's close. I know you've been championing Brady, to get this MVP. So I don't really dispute it. I don't think I really have an argument with the MVP. I kind of want Rodgers, but but I don't. You're not wrong. You're not wrong in having your case for Brady. There's definitely a case for Brady. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what? And I just see it as this. I mean, year after, I feel like the MVP award is it's a quarterback award. Right?
It absolutely
more often
is.
than not, unless you're running for 2,000 yards or you're catching for 2,000 yards, chances are you're not going to have a chance of winning it, right?
Yeah.
Usually in the past, the award goes to the quarterback who has usually the best stats, right?
Best stats and the close, if not the best record, close to it, like they would say.
Close to it. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I guess anybody could make the case for Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, but I mean, I see it like this. Tom Brady's 44 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He has the most passing yards. He has the most touchdowns. In terms of wins, he pretty much tied Aaron Rodgers in terms of wins. Was he the most efficient? No. Did he throw up some interceptions? More interceptions? Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, he had a couple of dud games.
He threw the ball a lot more. Tampa Bay threw the ball a lot more because Aaron Rodgers had a phenomenal running game this year, right?
Yeah.
He had a really good running game, so he didn't have to play hero ball as much as Tom Brady. Tom Brady's defense basically sucked the whole year because everybody was injured and they were kind of coming in and out of the lineup. I think in terms of consistency, Aaron Rodgers probably had the most consistent year. I'll give him that 100%.
Yeah.
Aside from that Steelers game, aside from the New Orleans game, I think he was pretty consistent throughout the season. Right?
Yeah.
But I mean, still, I don't know. It just seems to me like, the past couple of years, usually the award goes to the player who has the most wins, the player that has the most touchdowns, and usually the most
yards,
passing yards.
Yeah.
Right. So this year, it just seems like they kind of moved the goalposts, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh well, we're looking at who was more efficient and who threw less interceptions, and it's just like, okay, so let's move the goalposts. I just hope if that's the case, then moving forward, that's what I want to see moving forward for the next MVP. I want them to look at everything, the whole body of work, and not just how many yards they pass for or how many touchdowns they pass for and so on. So we'll see what happens.
It's a little unfair that a defensive player like almost has no shot at this award. Who was the last defensive player to win this award? Was it Lawrence Taylor?
Oof, I don't know, man. You're going way
I know,
back.
that's what I'm saying. That's to tell you how far back. I can't think honestly. I other than him, because I think I watched a show recently and they said that, I'm like, damn, he won MVP. I was like, that's crazy. But outside of him, I'm like, I can't think of any other defensive player that won an MVP, like as far as I can remember. And I don't even know when he won MVP that year. I don't even know when he won it, but it had to be in the 80s, obviously. But I have no clue. So like they have no shot. Wide receivers, I think you have to catch for like 2,500 yards to have a shot. I don't even think 2,000 yards is enough.
Well, look at Cooper Kupp, man. He had an amazing season, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had an amazing season. He had how many 1,900 receiving yards. And I'm trying to remember how many touchdowns did he have. I think he had like 15 or 16 touchdowns.
Yeah, something like that.
He had a phenomenal season, like no doubt. And he was like a far third in terms of the running. I think he got like one MVP nomination.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's like they should just make this the quarterback MVP award if that's the case, right?
Yeah, I think so. Just put best quarterback.
Yeah,
I think that's the best quarterback. I think that should be its own award, and the MVP should be like everybody. But
agreed.
They rank it funny. But as far as the rest of the list goes, I can't really argue it. I was trying to like dispute maybe Vrabel, but then you can't argue him because they got the number 1 seed after Henry went out.
Yeah, I can't even argue that.
No.
I can't argue that. I'm still trying to figure out how they win the games, how they won a lot of their games. Honestly,
I don't know. I really don't.
Tannehill sucked. He did not play well all season long. Their receivers were in and out of the lineup. A.J. Brown was constantly injured, and so was Julio Jones. They lost Henry, and yet they still managed to win. So, I mean, I can't dispute that. Like, I think Vrabel, whatever he did and whatever voodoo he did, or in order to help his team win, he did a phenomenal job. Like, honestly, I still can't figure out how they made it out of the first seed, even though they just completely sucked in the playoffs. But still,
yeah. Now, with obviously the Super Bowl, I don't want to do the traditional way of like breaking down, like the matchups and that kind of stuff. I'm just gonna give you like a few questions, which I'll do a little bit different. But for Sunday for you, like going into this game, now that the Rams have made it here, right? Is it considered a lost season if they don't win the Super Bowl?
Absolutely.
It's probably
100%.
a softball question, but yeah.
No, 100%. Absolutely. I feel like every year for the past 3 or 4 years, the Rams have pretty much sold out their future in order to try and get the best roster that they possibly can, right? And I find that last season was no different. They picked up this season, was no different. They picked up Matthew Stafford. I think they traded him for like 2 first rounds or something, 2 first round picks or whatnot. They brought in Odell Beckham. They brought in Von Miller. That team is just stacked with talent. And I feel like if they don't win now, they might never have a chance to win.
Yeah.
To me, like the Rams are always in the contention for possibly winning at the start of every season. Like they're up there. Everybody anticipates that if any team could make it to the Super Bowl, it would most likely be them.
Yeah, I think it's just because of all the money they spent, all the equity they traded out, and they've gone all in this season. But to me, it's funny. Like my expectation, even with all that said, it wasn't for them to win it all. You know what I mean? Like I know they had that hype kicked in from day one. I think they even had the first Sunday night game of the year, which kind of tells you that, right? Like the hype for that was real. Based on the trade, new stadium. They had no fans last year in that new stadium. So this year is their first year in front of the fans. The Super Bowl's in their backyard, potentially. Like it's all set up for them to be there. But like I said, I think I answered this question yes, but it's like 65-35. Just because the 35% is it definitely wasn't my expectation for them to win. I felt like the Niners, the Packers, and even the reigning champions, like the Bucks, I think they had just as much as a chance for them to do it, at least in the NFC. You know what I mean? Like if any of them got there and they knocked off the Rams, would I have been stunned? Would I said it was a shocker? Not really. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, and I'm saying the Niners because I'm a little obviously I'm slightly biased on that, but I thought because if their team was healthy, I thought they really had a legitimate shot. Because the year before my team was completely mashed up, right? So. For me, it's like a 65-5. Like it's not like for me, it's not a definite 100% yes, but just because they spent so much, like just so much time, and they traded out so much to go all in. Like they threw all their chips at the table this year. So I think because of that, it's like it is kind of a lost season. But I mean, they made it to the Super Bowl, so I think like the goal is at least like halfway accomplished. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. But don't forget, I mean this is not the first time they made it to the Super Bowl in the past couple of years.
Right.
Like they were in the Super Bowl, I think it was it
like 3 years
4
ago?
years ago?
Yeah, 3 years ago, I think.
3 years ago.
3-4 years ago.
Yeah. 3 years ago, they were the chosen ones.
Yeah.
I don't think very many people thought that the Patriots had a chance to beat them because their roster was just absolutely stacked. Almost as it was probably not as stacked as this team right now,
but pretty
but that
close.
team was stacked. It was pretty close, right?
Pretty close.
And and they did. I mean, we all know how that ended with their 28. What was it 28, 23? No, the end of the game was 28.
No, I think it was a low scoring game. Like I remember like that game. That wasn't a great Super Bowl to watch, if I remember correctly. It was great for you because you're a Patriots fan.
It was fantastic for me. Yeah, it was 13-3. That's what it was.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
It was 13-3. Yeah. I got my Super Bowl mix-ups. I'm tired. Yeah.
It's okay. When they won that much, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, you can't get it mixed up. I'm a little jealous of that. I feel like that's a little humble brag, you asshole. Like I kind of feel like that's what you're doing. You got to stick it in my face a little bit. What's the most surprising thing about the Bengals' run to this Super Bowl this year? And I guess it's the same question for both teams. Like, what's the most surprising thing about both these teams, during their run to Super Bowl 56?
With the Bengals, I'd have to say the most surprising part is they're actually even there. Honestly, I don't even know one person who would have picked the Bengals at the start of the season to make it to the Super Bowl. Like, honestly. Look at the past couple of years. Like, look at, for instance, last year, Joe Burrow gets hurt, tears his ACL. They ended up going 4-11. The season before that, I believe they were like 2-14 or something like that.
Yeah.
They've had consistent losing for literally the past 2 decades. Honestly. They've been terrible. They've been an absolute terrible team. They did make it a few playoffs here and there. I remember with AJ Green and so on. But I mean, aside from that, they have not been a really good team.
Yeah, they've been either mediocre or trash, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that they're in the Super Bowl just kind of blows my mind. Like I was telling you, and I think I told somebody before also, I've never met a Bengals fan. Like, I've honestly never met a Bengals fan. Legit never met a Bengals fan. So the fact that they're in there and just looking at their path of how they got there just kind of, it blows my mind and it impresses me. Joe Burrow, I knew he was good coming in. He played a few games and then he got injured. He was out for the regular season. So, of course, they went back to sucking. And then this year he came in and he was just amazing. And I think just bringing in Chase, Jamar Chase, his old college buddy, onto the team, like whoever is that executive who made that decision and pulled that trigger, he should be the executive of the year, honestly. Because Jamar Chase is like he's a phenom. He's phenomenal, honestly. He's one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen. He's incredible, and it's still in his rookie season.
What's crazy about that too is, I mean, the guy sat the whole year last year. You know, due to circumstances, he wasn't injured, but due to the circumstances of the pandemic, he chose to sit out. So the fact that he's having this season and he sat out a year, it's like, damn, that's really impressive.
It is. And what this team managed to do, like, I mean, I knew that they had some really good offensive pieces. Like, we knew that going in. You know, they had a good team, but I feel like Chase kind of just put them over. He just put them over that hump. Like, Chase is what they were missing. They were missing that explosive guy that basically takes all the coverage with him when he's running by people. That's what they were missing. And I feel that he really just, you know, he elevated that whole team. He elevated Joe Burrow. And, it's just incredible. What they've done is just simply amazing, honestly.
Like, we both kind of thought, like, there was a potential, at least going into the playoffs, not the beginning of the season, obviously. Nobody thought that. But, like, going into the playoffs, we both believed that there was a potential that they could be here, right? You know what I mean? Because no team, and especially in the AFC, was particularly that strong. You know what I mean? So, but they had, like, going into the playoffs, again, mind you, like, they had this je ne sais quoi about them. Like, they had that something about them. Like, they were talented enough, and they had enough confidence to make it happen. But, like, most of us didn't see it happening. But that I would say their resiliency is what, to me, that kind of stuck out with them for the whole playoff run, at least for me. Like, the fact that, like, you know, they had that comeback win versus KC, which was, like, that was incredibly impressive. The defensive stops they had on Derrick Henry on fourth down, I think one of the biggest plays of the game. You know, the play right before halftime of the AFC Championship on Tyreek Hill, stopping him on the goal line. Like, they've had these moments. I mean, even the fact the 9 sacks versus the Titans, like they're still in every game. You know what I mean? Like to me, like, that was like the thing that stuck out for me with them the most. And you know, the pressure of them being in this game is, like, it is definitely a real thing. But, you know, and especially because, you know, obviously the Rams are, like, the home team. But, you know, if they don't let the moment get to them, like the way they've been playing, like, if they stay steady, I think they have a great chance of winning the game. I won't give you my predictions yet, of course, but, like, I think if they can kind of, like, weather that storm, I would say the first maybe 20 minutes of the game or so, like that first quarter. You know what I mean? Like, going into the second quarter, partway through, if they can manage that, I think they got a great shot, because they're like, that's the one thing, they've just been resilient and poised the whole time.
Yep.
You know, on both sides of the field. You know, so to me, I'm like, I look at them and I'm like, it's impressive, man. It's impressive to see. Like, again, I thought they were our dark horse, I would say. You know, but I didn't think they would be here, to be honest. I thought Kansas City was going to take them off, but man, it's really impressive. And I think for the Rams, like, the most surprising thing, I'll be honest with you, with Stafford.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And again, during the playoffs, like, the way he was playing leading up to the playoffs, Roger, he was what, I don't even know if this is a proper word, but he was looking very lion-y. You know what I'm saying? Like, very lion-y. Like, you figured at some point he was gonna do something stupid to lose the game, or do a turnover at, like, the worst possible time, and, like, you know, especially with all that pressure. But for the most part, like, during this playoff drive, he's been playing really well. Like, if you look at the stats for the playoffs in these 3 games, the guy has, you know, 906 yards, 6 TDs, 1 pick, 72% completion rate. Like, you can't play much better than how he's playing right now. And with that said, though, Roger, if Tart comes down with that pick, we're not even having this conversation. You know what I mean? Just because he gives you that chance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He gives you that chance. But I don't know about you with the Rams. Like, what's the surprisingly with the Rams with you? But for me, it's Stafford.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it would definitely be Stafford. I'd say it would be Stafford / Cooper Kupp.
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
thought Cooper Kupp. I knew Cooper Kupp was good. You know, I would never put Cooper Kupp up there with like let's say like like a Tariq Hill or
DeAndre Hopkins
or even
or
like a Devontae Adams or any one of those guys, right?
or
He
Hopkins
was
or one of
always
these
good.
guys.
Like he had good hands, but his stats never really. He was always kind of like a mid tier kind of quarterback mid tier wide receiver. He was always felt like a mid tier wide receiver. You know, you'd pick him up, but he wouldn't really get that many touchdowns. He'd get a lot of catches, but he wasn't really that great,
He
right?
get hurt.
And then Stafford came into town, and oh my God, Stafford makes this guy look like he is like the next Randy Moss, honestly.
Yeah.
And between the both of them, like they both escalate they kind of both bring up each other.
Yeah.
And like, wow, like I did not see them coming. I did not see that coming. I knew Stafford was good. I mean, we all knew that Stafford was good. He didn't really have that much playoff experience. So, I mean, towards the end of the season, I agree. He was really shaky. Like he threw some really questionable picks. He didn't really have very many very good games towards the end. But in the playoffs, he's been really, really good, especially for somebody who, doesn't really have that much playoff experience either. Because I mean, he did play for the Lions previously, right?
Yeah, no, for real.
But yeah, I mean, those two together, they're a really hard duo to stop. And then when you throw in Odell Beckham, and then there are two running backs, Sony Michel. That was another good pickup. Sony Michel was a good trade that they made. And Cam Akers coming back. Like, they're a really good offense. Really, really good offense. But yeah, I'd have to say both Stafford and Cooper Kupp, because I didn't see that coming. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, it's almost like Stafford, like it was, one of those things where like you kind of shake the kinks out before you go out and play. Like that's what it kind of feels like. That last like 4 or 5 games where he was playing terrible. It's like he was getting all his mistakes out. It seems like.
Yeah.
Or he's waiting to be disastrous at the worst possible moment. We'll see what happens. I don't. It's one of the two.
Know what? I always say with the Super Bowl, I mean, if you're good enough to make it to the Super Bowl, I don't believe that anybody really truly has an advantage. I think that it's whichever team wants it more is going to take it. Plain and simple. Anybody has a puncher's chance once they reach that Super Bowl. So I mean, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a good game.
If the Rams win the Super Bowl and Cooper Kupp wins the Super Bowl MVP, is this the greatest season a wide receiver has ever had?
I would say yes. I would definitely say yes. And the only reason why I say yes is I still like Cooper Kupp had a phenomenal season. I don't think it tops Michael Thomas's season. What was it, back in 2019? Michael Thomas had like 143 yards. He had around 1,700 yards. He had about 15, 16 touchdowns. Like, he had a really good season. And I think Cooper Kupp is right up there with him. But
and
the fact
Calvin
that Cooper
Johnson
Kupp
too,
is going...
and Calvin Johnson too, because didn't Calvin Johnson get 2,000 yards in a year?
Calvin Johnson got 2,000 yards at 1.2. Absolutely. But they never made it to the Super Bowl. They never made it to the Super Bowl. If he goes to the Super Bowl and he, like, let's say he wins MVP, that puts him on top of Calvin Johnson. That puts him on top of Michael Thomas. I would even say that puts him on top of Randy Moss. You remember that one year where Randy Moss had like 23 touchdowns? Mm-hmm. They made it all the way. The Patriots were undefeated going into the Super Bowl, and then they ended up losing to the Giants. I think that if Cooper Kupp basically wins the Super Bowl, and if he possibly is the MVP, I think that's the greatest year wide receivers ever had, honestly.
I'm going to give you a list. I worked on this list a little bit this afternoon of just like some legendary wide receivers in terms of not necessarily. I think I'm combining it with regular season and playoff success. So regular season, and then the fact that they won a Super Bowl. So I'm not looking at I forgot about Michael Thomas and like Calvin Johnson and those guys, but I think I was more looking at it from the perspective of they ended up with the ring, or they at least came, or at least they went to the Super Bowl, right? So I'll give you a quick list. So there's Jerry Rice in '89. He had 64 catches for 1,300 yards and 9 TDs. But in the playoffs, in 3 games, he had 21 receptions for 409 yards, including in the Super Bowl where they beat Cincinnati, actually, he had 11 catches for 215 yards and a TD.
Wow.
Right? Michael Irvin in 92 had 78 catches for basically about 1,400 yards, 1,396, 8 TDs. And in the 3 games in the playoffs, he went 18 for 288 with 2 TDs, including, I think he had 6 receptions, 114 yards and 2 TDs in the Super Bowl versus Buffalo. Isaac Bruce, he had, and it's funny because when you put in the stats in comparison to Cooper Kupp, it'll make sense in that moment. But like Isaac Bruce, legendary receiver as well, Hall of Fame, had a great year. Like the year they went to the Super Bowl and won in '99, the greatest show on turf. 77 catches, 1,165 yards, 12 TDs. In the playoffs, he had 13 catches for 317 in 3 games, including the game-winning TD in the Super Bowl over the Titans, which he also had 6 catches for 162 yards, which is this guy was a monster. Marvin Harrison, 95 receptions for 1,366 yards, 12 TDs, and in the playoffs he didn't really do much in that year. They won it though, but he didn't do much.
Okay.
Right, I think he had 15 catches for 193, no TDs during that playoff run, which is kind of shocking to see Marvin Harrison didn't get a TD during the playoffs the year that they won. It's interesting. But I'll give you 2 receivers who made it to the Super Bowl and lost. So that 2007 year that you mentioned with Randy Moss, 98 receptions, 1,493 yards, 23 touchdowns, right? But in the playoffs, Roger had to triple take this. He had 7 catches for 94 yards and a TD during the whole playoffs.
That's it? Really?
Yeah, they must have been like quadruple teaming him or something.
Jeez. Okay.
That doesn't even make sense, considering that what he did in the regular. It doesn't even make sense. I had to triple take it. I actually went on multiple sites to make sure it wasn't like the wrong thing I was looking at.
That's crazy.
Which is nuts. And then here's an underrated one. There's Larry Fitzgerald the year after in 2008. He had 96 catches for 1,431 and 12 TDs, which is like a great year. But in the playoffs in 4 games, 30 receptions, 546 yards, and 7 TDs, including 7 catches and 127 yards and 2 TDs in the Super Bowl that they lost.
Wow. Jeez.
So in comparison to all that right now, Cooper Kupp has 145 catches, 1,947 yards, and 16 TDs. And right now, he's got, through 3 games, he's got 25 catches for 386 yards and 4 TDs.
Wow.
With another game to play.
It's crazy.
It's nuts.
Crazy.
It's really like, when you break it down to that fact, it's really nuts. So he has a chance, like if he does this, like this is going to be the greatest, not only the greatest wide receiver season in the history of football, but he would be the I would say the wide receiver equivalent of Billy Hoyle. Remember when he breaks the stereotype and he dunks at the end of White Man Can't Jump?
Absolutely, 100%.
It's that's like that. I mean that is like breaking all stereotypes for white receivers.
It's true. That's so true.
Because I remember Steve Largent. I don't want to crown him as the greatest white receiver of all time, but damn, he's coming close, Roger. He's coming close.
It's crazy. Yeah, absolutely. But seriously, who saw this coming, man?
No, you're right. Because and even in fantasy, we would talk about Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, and I'm like, they're kind of the same. And people, you always have a group of people always arguing for Cooper Kupp, and I'm like, but every year when you look at the stats in India, it's pretty similar. Sometimes Robert Woods would be like he would have the better stats. Well, this season, nope.
Not even close.
Nope.
Not even close.
I'll give it to Kupp though. Like, and you played football, so you probably know this better than me. But like, he's an incredible route runner though. Like
he is. He's always been a route runner. But I don't know, man. It's like all of a sudden he looks like Jordy Nelson out there. Like I can't explain it. He's never been the fastest wide receiver. He's a solid route runner. He has really good feet, and he could run every route. But it's like this year, I don't know what's going on, man. He's like eating guys. Like, he's he's just outrunning people, and I have no clue where this came from. Maybe he's always been like that, and just Goff just didn't have the arm to get him the ball.
Maybe,
but it's just like it's crazy, man. It's crazy. It's almost as if they, this year they decided that they were gonna have him go. They were gonna have him run at least 3 or 4 go routes on every flipping game, because now he's outrunning people, man. It's crazy. Didn't see it coming.
No, really didn't. Who's your X factors going into Sunday's game?
The X factors. I would say Jamar Chase, definitely.
Okay.
Jamar Chase. Obviously, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, 100%.
And let me preface this by saying it doesn't necessarily have to be the player, like a specific player. It could be like whatever, but it's up to however you want to go. You go with it.
Okay, so if I had to point out an X factor, I'd say it would have to be the offensive line of the Bengals.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They have to protect Joe Burrow. They do. They didn't do a really good job versus the Titans. They did a better job versus the Chiefs, but the Chiefs don't have Aaron Donald on the other side.
Yeah, or Von Miller.
Exactly, or Von Miller. So I mean, the Chiefs don't have that type of firepower. All right. The thing with the Rams is that they could get a lot of pressure on you with just 3 guys coming up the gut.
Yeah,
because they have some of the best D linemen, and I mean they're phenomenal. So because of that, it's always possible that they could drop everybody back. They could possibly double team OBJ, and then have
you mean Chase?
Have Ramsey. Pardon me?
You mean Chase? You mean?
I mean Chase. Yeah, sorry. I mean double team Chase, and then have let's say 2 guys double team. I don't know, any one of those other 2 guys. I mean, let's just say they could get pressure on the quarterback. And I feel like if it's another game where they get 9, where Joe Burrow is sacked 9 times, it's going to be a long, long game from him.
Yeah,
a very long game. But on the same note, I mean, they need to find, like, if I had to look at the Bengals, I would say it would definitely be, Jamar Chase for sure. Their offensive line, Jamar Chase, they have to find ways to scheme him the ball.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure if Jalen Ramsey's going to follow him. I don't know. I don't think so.
No? Okay.
But, if he starts beating them, then they're going to have to put Ramsey on him, or the game's going to get out of control really, really quickly.
Yeah.
Because the one thing with the Bengals is they could score from anywhere. Like, I mean, they're really, really good. Even from a running perspective, like Joe Mixon could have a game against them, man. Even though the Rams have a really good defensive line, Joe Mixon could have a really good game against them.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of things. Honestly, there's a lot of X factors there. T. Higgins, he's a phenomenal wide receiver. Tyler Boyd is really, really good too. I think Husmaza, he's going to be back as well. It's going to be an interesting game. I would say it's going to be an interesting game, 100%.
I think for the Rams, for me, it's I would say it's both Aaron Donald and Von Miller. Like I think if both of those guys start collapsing the line, I agree with you. Like I think it's going to be a tough night for Burrow, because I think his margin for error, I think it's slightly smaller than it is for Stafford going into this game. At least for me, but just because it's like his first time really playing in the playoffs and being on this run. But I'll say this though, I think it's always good, or I should say great, for a young star who's won a chip in college to like play in like a championship type setting, like within the first couple of years in the league. Like I don't know. I find like it bodes well for those guys, especially if they're like the reason why they won the championship or went to like a deep run in the playoffs. I find like those guys, when you get them in like those first couple of years, it's like, I don't know, man. Like I shouldn't say all guys like that, but like some guys, it's like those, the great ones especially, and who knows, we could be saying that about Burrow in a few years where like he's a great one. Like they're already trending there, but like I feel like those guys don't have like, like the nerves aren't quite the same because you just kind of been in that situation. Like I think for Burrow to be in to win that championship, for LSU like 2 years ago, and be in a Super Bowl 2 years later for the Bengals. Number one, it's insane. But the secondly though, I just find like, and I'm not comparing the national championship to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl is a Super Bowl, but at least you at least dealt with a huge amount of pressure in a championship game. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
like you're not that. It's not like 8 years or like 9. It's like a 9-year gap, between those moments and now. Like, oh man, I'm here. I'm a little nervous, but it's like he already has that personality. So it's like even if that game gets out of hand, where at least they're getting like sacked like crazy, I could see him still being like, all right, next play. Just because it's like he's been in that. Those guys have been in that moment. Chase himself too as well, right? Because he was on that championship team too. Like,
that's true.
They've been in that moment. Like, think about this. Odell Beckham 2 years ago was giving money to guys like Jefferson, Chase, and Burrow on the field. You know what I mean? 2 years ago for LSU when they won that championship, because he's an LSU alum himself, and now he's going against them. I think that's wild.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. 100%, man. Yeah, I mean, the thing I think I love about Joe Burrow the most is the fact that he's cool under pressure, man. He doesn't freak out. The moment never seems too big for him. Even when they're down, I feel like there's still a chance that they could come back, and they've done it so many times this year. And it's like, that's a fantastic trait to have in a quarterback. Honestly, having a strong arm is great. Having accuracy is great, but I think what really separates the good from the amazing quarterbacks is the fact that they can still produce under pressure, right? How are they going to act when they get sacked 9 times? Are they going to get gun shy and stop throwing the ball? Are they going to be off with their accuracy? And I've seen so many times where this guy's just getting killed and he's just getting hit over and over and over again. And he's still delivering crisp passes to a point where it's like you start getting the feeling like, I can understand why some people would compare him to Brady, although obviously he doesn't have nothing close to the resume as Brady has. But I can see it because in the biggest moments, it's like, he just buckles down, he's getting hits, and he just seems to never be out. Like, he's not going to throw the shitty the shitty interception, or he's not going to go and fumble the ball at the worst possible time. He doesn't lose games. Yeah. And I think that's one of his best traits.
No, I agree. I think the other my other X factor I would say too is I almost went with the Bengals O-line. But keeping with the Bengals team, I will go with their secondary. Just because number one, they got to contain Kupp. Like, that's one thing my Niners couldn't do. Like, he just destroyed us. But I think most importantly, just to lend to what we were saying before, I think they got to be prepared to catch 1 or 2 of those Stafford picks that he's going to give you. Because there's going to be a throw, at least 1 or 2 throws that, like, and even in Sunday's game, because he always gives you a couple of throws where it's like, oh my God, they should have got that. They should have got that pick, And I feel like if they can kind of do that, because they did a good job with that with Mahomes, a couple weeks back. So I mean, if they can channel that spirit, like if they can go back and they can catch those couple of passes that he throws, like those 1 or 2 passes that's like almost like an instant. It's like a Santa Claus gift. You know what I mean? Like it's made for you. It's made for you to take it to the house. Like if they can turn those into points, especially touchdowns, it's gonna suck the whole life out of the stadium. Yeah. So I think to me they're the X factors. But I would equally say the offensive line too. The offensive line that was like my 1A. But to me the secondary of the Steelers, of the Bengals is gonna be like that. They're everything in this game. Because to me, if you can shut down Kupp, I know. Odell's there and he's going to give you problems too. But I think if you can shut down Kupp, it's going to be a different game.
It will be 100%. And I feel like if they, just looking back at the game that the Rams had versus Tampa, Tampa did a really good job of shutting down Kupp for most of the game. But then Kupp just kind of went off, and obviously we know what happened in the last play of the game, right? Mm-hmm. If the Bengals can contain Kupp, then I feel like they have a really good chance. Like I would rather OBJ go in and catch
Destroy you.
150 yards and
Yeah.
2 touchdowns. I would be okay with that. But you need to shut down Cooper Kupp because he is the first read that Matthew Stafford always has.
Mm-hmm.
Like that last couple of minutes during the Tampa game, that last minute, he was only throwing to one person, and that was Cooper Kupp.
He was looking at nobody else.
Nobody else. Everybody knew that the ball was going to Cooper Kupp, except for Tampa, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
Because his last 3-4 passes were all at Cooper Kupp, each and every one of them. Van Jefferson wasn't really catching the ball that well. OBJ in the second half just completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you cover Cooper Kupp, 2 guys on him, I would put 2 guys on him, honestly. And I would dare anybody else to beat me except for Cooper Kupp. And I even mentioned that during the Tampa game as well. Like, this guy he could have been the MVP of the season. He's been their most consistent receiver, and he's been their best offensive player the whole year. That type of person, that type of production, you need to shut him down. Because if you shut him down, then all of a sudden Stafford has to go to his second read and his third read. And, sometimes when you're under pressure, what you always try and do is you're trying to chuck it up to your number one receiver, your best offensive player, right?
Yeah.
And that's how you start getting interceptions. Guys go back to what they know when they're under pressure and they're kind of freaking out. But I do agree, man. I mean, the Bengals' defense secondary is going to be crucial because if they can't contain them, the Rams are going to destroy them, Calvin.
Yeah.
They were going to destroy them.
No arguments out of me from that.
Mm-hmm.
Final question: who you got?
I love our underdog, man. I love our underdog, and that's why I'm going to go with the Bengals. Do they have the better team? No, they don't have the better team. If I had to look at the 2 teams, and if I had to think who's had the more difficult road to the Super Bowl, I would say it would most likely be the Bengals.
Yeah.
Right? The Bengals came out of nowhere. They have nothing to lose. They're literally playing with house money right now. If they lose the Super Bowl, nobody's going to be like, oh, damn, you know what? They lost, they were the chosen ones. They were supposed to win. No. All the pressure is on the Rams right now. The Rams are playing in LA in their stadium. They've slept all week in their own beds.
Yeah.
They're playing in their stadium with their crowd and their fans. All the pressure is on them.
With Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg performing the halftime show.
100%. LA's finest. Absolutely. All the pressure is on the Rams to the point where, do I think the Bengals have a chance? 100%. I think the Bengals are explosive enough, and I think if they make enough plays, I think they could win.
I really,
I
believe
they
so
went
too.
toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, and the Chiefs, offensively, they're probably either the top offensive team in the league, or if not the top, at least the second or third best.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the Bengals has a puncher's chance, and I'd love to see an upset.
You know what? Your last couple of picks was dead on. You actually predicted the Super Bowl based on the matchups.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna give you your props for it. I'm gonna give you no shade, no shots given. I'm gonna give you your props. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Rams on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually 0 for 2 when I did this, but I'm actually praying, Roger. I'm praying to the gods that I go 0 for 3 because I'm rooting for the Bengals. I'm rooting for the Bengals, but I think the Rams will win. I think it'll be 38-30, and I think
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Donald will win the MVP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which will be crazy considering I have to score that high. Maybe I should make it 28-20. I'll do that. 28-20. Aaron Donald wins the MVP. But
Yeah.
I hope I'm dead wrong. I hope I'm completely wrong. I hope I'm completely wrong about it.
Listen, man, it should be an interesting game. It should be a very interesting game. There's 2 teams the Rams are the chosen ones. They have the high-powered offense. They have the high-powered defense. They're playing in their stadium. Everything screams Rams. Rams are going to win 100%. But how many times have we seen the underdog come in and beat the shit out of the better team?
Yep.
It happens all the time.
It happened last year.
Happened last year, 100%. 110%. So I think I don't know. I just have a feeling. I just have a feeling. I have a feeling that they're going to pull it off. I don't think it's going to. It might. I don't think it. I feel like it's not going to be a high-scoring game. I feel like it's going to be more of a defensive game where the two offenses are kind of going at it. But I think the Bengals have enough to win. I really do. I really do think so.
I hope to God you're right, Roger. I really do. I hope you're right. I don't want to see the Rams win. I don't. Yes, I'm bitter.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm still bitter. I am still bitter. It's honestly for me. It's probably yes. Media-wise, is a better story if the Rams win. But underdog-wise, it's a way better story if the Bengals come and do this, especially because they're the Bengals. You know what I mean? It's a way better story if they do this. At least with the Bucks have their history too. But at least the Bucks have won a Super Bowl in their lifetime, and I mean they had Brady and all those guys, so it's like it wasn't shocking. But this would actually be shocking because this team is so young and really and truly they're not supposed to be here. So for me, it's a much better story if the Bengals win. But I'm gonna say the Rams.
Okay, fair enough.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm dead wrong. But on that note, what we're gonna do is we're definitely gonna come back Sunday night after the Super Bowl. We'll record the pod. I'm flirting with the idea of doing this on Twitter Spaces, which I'm leaning towards doing. So, for those listening and tuning in, make sure you just check out my Twitter account. I barely use it, but my Twitter account, which is CalC_SSA. But I'll probably put on Instagram that if I'm doing like a Twitter Spaces thing, and whoever wants to listen in, make comments and stuff while me and Roger are going back and forth about the game, jump right in. I'm hoping Kendrick Lamar kills the Super Bowl performance too. I'm looking really forward to that as a hip hop fan. Don't want to forget that part of it. So I can't wait to see that. But there's a chance, Roger. This is the last thing I'll say. There's a chance, in the spirit of Eminem, that Cooper Kupp could be the greatest wide receiver, have the greatest wide receiver season ever. There's a chance. There's a chance this could happen.
It's going to be 8 Mile all over again.
It could be the 8 Mile. He's going to lose himself. He could lose himself right now. Let's get out of here.
That very well can happen, man. Absolutely. Anything can happen. I'll tell you that much. That's the beauty of football.
Let's get out of here. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Ave Podcast. And thanks once again for South Sharav Shotgun Rider Roger Callender for coming on through for this one. We got one more to go with the Super Bowl post-game edition of the Ave. I'll be activating the Twitter Spaces right after the game. For those that want to listen live after the game, check it out under my Twitter handle, CalC_SSA. That's CalCee_SSA. The replay of it will be out Monday morning, the latest, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm hoping the Super Bowl is going to be a good one. And if not, we'll find ways to crack on it. And at the very least, we'll be talking about that Super Bowl halftime performance. It should be entertaining at the very least. Thank y'all for your support. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast shows for South Sharav. Hit that like button and hit those 5 stars for me. Don't be a hater. Run me my 5. Run me my 5, Playboy. And check out SouthSharav.com for the catalog. Double back into certain episodes. Once again, that's SouthSharav.com. For Roger Callender, this is Cal C. And you just tuned in to the Ave Podcast on South Sharav Radio. Come hang with us after the game, all right? Until then, I'm gone.